Okay, so one of the things I was saying was that one of the ways to help you basically do two things at once is that you can evaluate your source as a way to sort of, um, instead of just sort of reading it over, you can actually be reading it and evaluating it. And as you're doing that, you'll figure out what the main point is. You'll figure out basically all the things that you need to talk about. So they gave you this, and they mentioned this in the lesson, I think. So it's this English idea, right? So it's called the CRAP test, right? But it stands for these things. So currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So the idea is that you found a source and you're trying to evaluate how worthwhile it is. Um, and so in this class, this type of a class, right, it's about sort of slowing everybody down and making them really think about like each of the things. Eventually, in real life, right, we're not going to all be walking around with this worksheet, and every time we see a source, we're going to take the worksheet out and figure it out. That's not it, but we're practicing it so we get better at being able to just to evaluate sources. So here's what this worksheet looks like, and I provided a worksheet just for people. That's what this CRAP test worksheet is. It looks like this. Oops. And it goes through each of the elements for the acronym, right? CRAP, currency, and it's basically you are giving yes, maybe, or no, and you're just scoring it, right? So you're making it, and then you end up with how many points it is. And so it's a way of really having students focus on a source and really break down how worthwhile it is for them. Again, I don't think anyone in reality expects people to really be doing this entire thing for every source they ever get. But I'm providing it just as like sort of a an outline, as a way for you to think about. You're going to have to read your article anyway, right? So while you're reading it, you might as well look out for these elements, right? So I was going to go over very briefly what each element is. Um, so you have the yes, maybe, no, right? You're supposed to give. So the currency just means the timeliness, right? So is it new? And Chamberlain's already sort of taken care of this, because they sort of remember they suggest that you want sources from, like, I'm saying 2017 probably to 2021. Maybe it's 2018. I forget. But in any event, so that's what this is. When was it published? If it's from 0 to 5 years ago, it gets 2 points. If it's more, it gets 1. If it's even more than that, it's 0. Right? Is it current for your topic? Um, does the source cite current facts, opinion, studies? Has the information been revised or updated? Does it discuss other studies and articles? So these are all the types of questions you would ask just to figure out if the source is like timely enough. In general, I would say if you have an article with the date on it, from 2018, 2019, it's probably going to be okay, unless when you're reading it, you start to notice that the person is using information from studies that took place in 2002 or whatever, right? So that's what I would look out for, right? And I mean, you don't need to go through and do the yes, maybe, no, right? You could, maybe it's fun. I don't know. But like what you're trying to do is just as you're reading it, one of the things that's in the back of your mind is, all right, are they using information that's current? That's one of the things. That's the currency part. Next part is the relevant part. So the relevant part means, is it relevant for what you are talking about, for your subject? So does the information relate to your topic? Do you know who the intended audience is for? So probably if it's a scholarly article, it's probably for other people in that discipline, whatever the discipline is. It could be social work, it could be psychology, depends um, whoever published it and so on. Is the information at an appropriate level, right? If it's scholarly, it definitely is. Um, I mean, that's one of the things I think this is something that all universities sort of teach, this CRAP idea, to help students evaluate sources. But because Chamberlain was like, all right, we need 6 scholarly sources, they've sort of already helped us do much of this, right? But I just figured it's a way to sort of, since you have to read it anyway, since you have to read through it anyway, having these in your mind as you read is not a bad thing. Because in fact, one of the things in your annotation is that you have to explain how it relates to your subject, right? How you're going to use this topic, how you're going to use the article, rather.
Do
So
we
that's
need to fill this out? And
you do not. You do not.
okay,
It's just
this
that
is for just our
yes,
information.
exactly. It's just for your information. You don't need to do it.
And
It's
regarding,
go for it.
sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Regarding the 6 sources,
Yeah,
all should be within last 5 years,
I would say yes. I think
because
think
it's
they
kind of
said
hard to like sometimes, since
I
it's a lot 6 sources, maybe it's like,
I know, but so that's what they say. That's their goal. I mean, to try to get and that's why I think they even do it earlier, but I'm trying to do 5 years because I think 5 years is not bad. So 20, and in the searches, right? One of the ways, well, the library at least, that one you can set the dates, so that helps you. But if you're doing it off of Google, you just have to pay attention and try to find the most recent information as you can. And I know because I've looked into this subject, like looking for articles for people and things. And I know like there's, big studies were done like in 2013, right? Like a big comprehensive study about poverty was done, went from 2001 to 2013. If there's no other big giant study that you can find, maybe you can still use that one. So in my mind, the goal is yes, you want to shoot for 2017 and then to 2021. But if you find something that's only ever been done one time and it's some comprehensive big study, then maybe you can still use that. That's what I was thinking, because I was looking and I was finding some information, but it was older. I mean, not that much older, but like 2015, 14. And I was like, okay, but it's a pretty substantial source. Like it's a government study that took 10 years that looks at poverty over a 10-year period. I was like, all right, this has some valuable information in it for sure, even though it's not, super recent.
mm-hmm.
So I say we just keep in our minds, we want recent, but if the source is good enough, use it.
Thank you.
Okay, what else we got? So we have currency. So is it timely enough? Again, like we just were talking about, whether it was published recently or whether it's using recent information or whether it's solid in some other way, like whether it's worthwhile. Relevance, does it connect to your subject? Authority basically means, is it credible? Since it's a scholarly source, it will be credible probably because it's in a journal, a peer-reviewed academic journal usually. But for the ones from Google, which I was saying you could use, if they have references, then you can sort of use those as scholarly. Then you do want to make sure at least that, it's a credible source, like it's coming from some institute, like it's not coming from a marketing company or an advertising company, but it's coming from, some institute of health or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what this is all about, trying to figure out who the author is, who wrote it, who published it, things like that. So that's how you can tell whether, the authority, they use the word authority because it fits their little word. And I use the word credibility more, but it's the same idea. Making sure that whatever source is, it has credible authors and it's, published in a credible place and so on. Okay, second A is accuracy. Right? So it's the reliability of the actual information and the evidence. So this is tricky for us to figure out. Like, so if it's a scholarly paper and they're using certain numbers, we tend to decide that they're accurate because of it's in this type of publication. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess the correctness of the content, one thing I would pay attention to, if somebody's writing an article about a study they did about 10 people, so we did a study on 10 people and here's what we found. It might not be the most accurate information, right? As opposed to somebody doing a study for like 1,000 people or something. Mm-hmm. So that's all I would look for. And you're looking, is it unbiased and free of emotion? So it's not an opinion piece, which it probably shouldn't be. So that's what accuracy means. It doesn't, I mean, it says you don't really have to go and look up every fact. Like if this says it's a fact, go find it in another source. I mean, I think that's unnecessary, but you do want to pay attention to anything to make sure that the information is accurate.
Mhm.
And
And these are
then,
all under the module, this information
yeah, so this one it's in discussion. So in the
is in
discussion
discussion.
board, yeah. And I'll also, when I post this video, I'll post it in the module for videos.
Okay.
But yeah, so in the discussion, this whole thing that I just went through has all of it there.
And for this week, we don't have the discussion things.
We have a discussion thing. Let me make sure I'll explain. It's not as the real big assignment is this
6 sources.
right, that's what
Right.
everybody's, but this is sort of about, I'm remembering, it's asking you about like what you think of an annotated bibliography in general. So here's the thing. So the first post is you share your thoughts on the annotated bibliography. So you can basically just write a paragraph answering these questions. Did you fully understand the definition of it, like what it was? Have you ever cherry picked information, which is they talk about cherry picking, which is basically you scan through an article and you just take a tiny bit that will help support your whatever you're doing, even though maybe it's not really the meaning because it was in the context of the article. So you don't really do that, I guess. That's one way to think of cherry picking. Anyway, so this is about your thoughts about annotated bibliography. Then, well, I guess see, this is interesting. So you could actually fill out that sheet because the second thing is you're going to evaluate one of your sources. Right? So you're going to pick a source, one of your articles, and you're basically going to run through these. The CRAP test.
Okay.
So you could, if you wanted to, you could fill out the little sheet and that will help you do that. Otherwise, just have the sheet with you and then do it. And you're basically going to, let me see how I can put this. This is almost like what well, we'll leave it at that. You're evaluating one of your sources. So for the discussion, you have share your thoughts about the annotated bibliography, and then you have pick one of your sources and evaluate it. And you can evaluate it using the CRAP test, meaning you want to look at all of the different elements of it. Currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Purpose was the last one. Purpose just means, is it clear what they're trying to do? Like if somebody wrote a paper and they did a study of children and so on, like we know what they're doing.
Sorry, what the purpose means? Like, for
so
example,
the purpose is like, why did you're trying to just, it should be clear why they wrote this article. Like what their goal is. Like, and what you're trying to do is make sure that they're not like trying to persuade you, or it's not about an opinion. That it's not biased, right? So that this is sort of looking out to make sure that it's not an opinion, but something that's based in actual evidence and fact.
Okay.
So you should be able to say, okay, I know, like, so if someone said, why do you think these people wrote this article? You should be able to say, oh, because they were studying, how poverty affects little kids. Like you should be able to know what the purpose is. If you're not really sure, or, then it could be like they're trying to persuade you and maybe it's not really solid. But anyway, so the purpose should be clear. That's about all.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I would go into it.
So basically for the initial post, we have to evaluate one of our sources and share our thoughts, like why this sources is like valid to use, right?
Well, that all goes, I mean, I would just answer the question. So for this one, right, this is the evaluation. So you introduce it, you explain why you chose it, you go over the current, the CRAP test and talk about what each one has, or
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to develop each one, but you want to make it clear that you checked the currency and the relevance, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Then how thoroughly have you read it? How many times? How have you benefited from it? Right? How's it going to help? That's what that is.
One paragraph should be enough for the.
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
a long paragraph is fine
Okay.
but then for the first paragraph, I guess it would be, is this idea of you want to read, if you haven't, I'm trying to think of if it's in the textbook or not. It's basically just your thought, like you're supposed to read about, at least either in the textbook or in the lesson, about what an annotated bibliography is for.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just giving your thoughts about it. Like, did you already know what it was for before class? You're basically just talking about what you think what use it might have. So it's sort of a personal paragraph.
Okay.
Just sort of what you think. So after reviewing the lesson and the textbook, so I'd probably that you want to make sure that you read this part of the textbook. You obviously go over the lesson, and then your first paragraph is just all about, here's what I think about annotated bibliographies, what they might be for. I didn't really know what they were for or whatever. And then your next one is, here's my source and your all that information about that. So basically your second one is almost like, one of your annotated bibliographies, basically, for one of the sources. But
Mm-hmm.
And then for the assignment, you want to make sure you have 6.
Yeah.
And
how about for follow-up?
What's that?
For the follow-up post?
Well, that's right. So your initial post, I would say, is like 2 paragraphs. The first is thinking about annotated bibliographies. The second is you evaluating one. And then the follow-up post is it's when you comment on someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to find one of the other people in the class, and then you're going to reply to them and trying to identify what
like
points
before.
they make. Exactly. Like it's the exact same. Yeah.
And regarding the quiz,